Welcome to Switch Your Light On Masterclass. Congratulations, you finally made it. This is a wonderful opportunity, so well done for making yourself a priority and investing in yourself. This is a beautiful process, so really take your time, make yourself a cup of coffee, get your workbook, get a pen out, switch off all distractions, and gift yourself with this time. Enjoy session 1. Right, so session 1 is the first part of the book. So we talk about being in the darkness, where a lot of us are coming from. So everyone's going through stuff in their life. If you're alive, you're going through something. You can't possibly not be going through something, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So that is the point. We have to go through stuff to grow. That's why it's called growing pains, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about the darkness and then the journey of self-discovery. So then we're going to tuck into ways of figuring out, so who are you then? Why are you here? What are you doing here? What's this journey all about for you? Okay? It can't possibly just be about getting stuff, having a house, buying lots of clothes, a car, and then dying. There must be more to it. Okay, so that's what we're going to discover. And then lastly, a little bit about the biochemistry of emotions. So weirdly enough, I did my undergrad in a BSc majoring in biochemistry. And didn't quite know what I was going to do with that, because I was actually waiting to get in for what I've studied. But weird how it all comes around, and it's been super helpful for me because I think with a scientific brain, so I'm always interested in the physics, like with the energy behind it. Like I want to actually know practically how it works, you know? So that's been very helpful for me. Okay. So today, to get the most out of today, just a few little admin-y things which I think will be super helpful, is be 100% present, which is what I've just shown you to do now. We've practiced being present. That's key to anything you're doing, not just this workshop. Anything you start doing, your day, with your children, whatever you're about to do, that moment, be in that moment. And if we're honest with ourselves, we're often in the next moment or hanging in the last moment that we didn't like, okay? Listen with your heart, not your head. That's a hard one because us intellectual head people want to understand and figure it all out and make sense of it. To get the most out of this, I'm going to challenge you to use your heart instead. Because your ego is the mind. So your mind is going to want to be right. That's the ego mind. Okay? It would rather be right than happy. And I'm going to teach you how to be happy and to find your inner joy. And to do that, you need to drop into your heart. So let go of trying to always, sometimes it doesn't totally make sense, but just feel it. It'll feel right. In other words, it'll resonate with you or it won't. Go with the resonation rather than intellectual, okay? Take lots of notes, little quotes and things that stand out for you, or little sentences, whatever. Everyone's different, so whatever floats your boat and sticks, write it down for yourself, because I promise you it's a lot today. Like when I was making this presentation, I was thinking, I hope they all have their breakfast, because it's going to be a lot. So yeah. And then ask lots of questions, get involved. The more involved you get, the more you're going to take home out of this, because you've put yourself into it. And you only really learn anything by experiencing it. So you can read lots of books on becoming a parent, a mom or a dad, but you only really know what it means to be a mom or a dad when you actually experience having a baby. So actually doing it, okay? Then be open to learning new things. There might be some stuff that's going to be a bit different for you, so get out of your comfort zone. Embrace the frustration. You might get to points of frustration. That's good, because it means you're learning something new. If it's not frustrating you, it's not difficult, then it's not new. You can do it. Obviously, what you put in is what you get out. Stay committed to the end. Try not to get too tired towards the end. Often we lose steam and then we kind of just wrap it up. I have made the last few sessions, the last session, a lot more relaxing, so you don't have to use mind power for that. The first bit is, the second and third session are intense, but the last one you just relax, okay? And then don't believe me. Whatever I'm saying, feel it out in your heart. If it resonates, so if the shoe fits, run with it. If it doesn't, leave it. Then it's not for you, and that's absolutely fine. Okay, so don't take my word on it. You are your best gurus, so you know what resonates with your heart. And if it resonates with your heart, then that message was for you. If it doesn't, it's for someone else, and that's fine. Okay, got it? Right, so we're going to start off with a little video just to get a feel for session 1 and what I wanted to get, because this is where we kind of all start at. Okay, so let's go.
I asked myself, is this it? Is this really why I came here? To work for a living, to make ends meet, and hope that I will continue to survive. And even when I became good at surviving, I thought to myself, I'm never really gonna get there, am I? Because every accomplishment came with a new target to strive for. Every answer came with another question. Every benefit came with its drawbacks. The prison of my mind was changing shape, even changing its appearance. But never would the change allow me the freedom to really live the infinite possibilities that I once felt somewhere within me. Who am I really? Because I'm done with chasing this carrot. I'm done living with fear, not being enough, continually having to prove myself. Why am I here? Is it really to be tested? To be good? To not be bad? To live between the lines? The answer came to me somewhere outside the lines, and it said, no. This is not a test. It is not a battle or a race that you need to win. You came here to be you, the real you, to move the energy that loves and dance with the possibilities that bend your reality. I wasted so much time thinking I owed something to others, or that others owed me, that I had to be patient, work hard, and wait for my turn, for my moment to arrive. But it was always this moment right here in the now that was the one waiting for my arrival. It's only here in this moment, now, where I could say, I have arrived. To me now, I'm not only free, I've come to realize that the only place I was not free was in my own mind. This is your life. It's your world. It's your reality. It's time for you to come out of the shadows. Time for you to take responsibility and to be who you really came here to be. To use your infinite potential. This is your moment now. Your moment to arise. Your moment to free your mind.
So you got a feel for where we're all coming from, and I think we can all relate to that little video. Pushing and grinding and trying to make it work to get somewhere and be somebody, and the frustration that comes with that. And sometimes we lose ourselves along the way. So I'm going to share a little bit about my journey. If some of you have read in the book the beginning part, but for those who haven't, I'm just going to share it again. So why am I here? So for me, obviously the title speaks for itself, Switch Your Light On. And I've always had a great life. It's not that it was a bad life, but I'm super enthusiastic about everything I do. So I wanted to be super mommy, super worker, super psychologist, super wife, super everything, and pushing myself to the limits. So at one point, I had 3 kids. My 4th kid, I was pregnant, and the first sort of wake-up call from life started ringing, but I chose to ignore it. And with my 4th pregnancy, I had a very thinned out uterus, and I literally couldn't walk much. I had to be always sitting down or 3 steps to the next thing. And that was already the little whisper to slow down. I was up at 6:30, I was leaving for work 6:30 in the morning, trying to get toddlers ready. My kids are all quite close together, getting everyone to school, getting to the hospital, doing 2 hospitals in the morning, then the practice. It was just crazy. And then still in my lunch break, rushing to all the schools to pick up, because I wanted to be at all the schools and the first mommy to fetch the child, and then rush back to the practice, and then rush back to fetch everyone from the bigger ones from sport, and then rush home to start cooking dinner, and then do homework with everyone, then extension work with everybody so that they're already extended at school, and then collapse at 9 o'clock or whatever. So I ignored that first whisper, and it's despite all my family trying to tell me to slow down, I'm fine, I'm strong, I can do it, and I'm loving it. That was the confusing part. It's not like I wasn't enjoying it. I was having a ball. I was just absolutely exhausted. And then obviously when my little one was born, the fourth one, when he was about 4 or 5 months old, on my birthday, I got some lovely creams, and I realized I had a lump in my breast. Just felt like a little pea. So they thought it was nothing because I've just been breastfeeding. It's probably just that. But they said let's just check it out anyway. They didn't want to take chances, so they did a surgery and took it out properly. And they said it's probably nothing. You're the picture of health. I remember that sentence. They said that sentence like 10 times to me because I went to 4 different doctors. And every time they said, you're the picture of health. I'm sure it's nothing. And 2 days later, because they said they'll see me in a while, and 2 days later, they're like, please come back in. And I kind of knew. Like, I wasn't even shocked. I kind of knew. My husband, on the other hand, did not know and just about died, obviously, because for him it was a shocker and he was not prepared or expecting it at all. But I wasn't that shocked, to be honest. I knew, because I remember driving one day, rushing from the hospital to the wherever, and I got to the turning circle and my heart was literally pounding up my chest because I'm rushing. I'm always rushing. It's just never enough time. And I actually thought, by the time I'm 40, I'm going to have a heart attack if something doesn't change, you know? So it wasn't quite a heart attack, it was aggressive cancer, but same sum. There was a knock on the door and I had to pay attention now. So I got the news, and true to form, just after that, where did I go? Back to work, which is a little bit insane when I think about it now, because you've just heard that news and then you go back and sit in front of a patient and carry on working. But the good thing about that was this little quote that you see on here, it's not the water around the ship that sinks the ship. It's the water you let in. I actually got that from a patient who had been one of the hospital patients. They go to art and they do stuff. And she had written this meme on her little art thing, as a little keyring that they make, and she wanted to give it to me to say thank you. And that's what I got when I got there. She didn't know what I was going through. She had no idea, but she just gave me this. And when I read this, I just had a moment, and I was like, yes. As terrifying as this moment is, and as hectic as it is, because they told me, like, it's aggressive treatment. We're going guns blazing with everything possible. So you're going to have chemo, a port put in, you're going to have a whole lot of surgeries, and it's happening now. And so there's not really much time. And I read this, and it just said, it's not the water around the ship that sinks the ship. It's the water you let in. And I just sat with that for a while, and I was like, yes. So it's up to me what I let in, whether this sinks me or not. And I'm not going to let this sink me. I'm going to use this, rather, to sail much further. So it's actually been a huge blessing. I didn't fight cancer. I don't have a negative relationship with it. I have a good relationship. I see it as an absolute blessing in a very ugly outfit, but it was an absolute blessing. It was a challenge, but I really am grateful for it because it's helped shape me into who I am. And if the gifts it's given me I can share with others, well, that's even better. So it expands. So obviously, I had the diagnosis, then I had to go straight in. Now, remember, I had a tiny little baby, so I needed to be carried the whole time. So I had to have a port put in my neck, and then that stayed in for a year. And then I did I had a mastectomy done as well. So obviously, I had to remove the breast, and then they put a balloon in, and over time, they expand it. And so it's a 2-year series of surgeries and things. And then the chemo, obviously, you go to chemo every few weeks. So having a little one and mastectomies, and you can't really carry, and so I used to sort of go on my hands and knees and then change them on the floor, and obviously had support from family. But it was the one thing, which sounds so vain, but I was so worried about losing my hair because I'm such a square. I've had the same hair my entire life, and to have no hair was just crazy to me, you know, and being the perfectionist type, which we'll get into today, you can imagine how that was scary for me because my hair's always in place and everything's neat and tidy, and now I've got to go out into the world with a buzz cut and no hair soon, you know? So I decided to just embrace it. I literally went home a couple of days before chemo. They said your hair's going to fall out, but I didn't want to freak my kids out because they're all small, and it's all boys, luckily. So they all wanted to shave their hair too, and I said no. I didn't want them to get too emotional about it, but they were all willing and ready, which was sweet. But the little baby had no hair, so I said, well, you and our buddy are together. And it's amazing how God gives you things. Like, the best thing to me is a baby, and that's what I had during that journey. As people might think it was tough, that was actually the blessing, having a little poppet with me, which is my happy space. We were both bald, so we didn't feel judged, and it was like so I shaved my hair myself. On number 1, it was long, and I just went, boom, took it off with my boys. We put loud music on, we made it fun, and I said, guys, let's just go for this. And instead of seeing the chemo as bad, we reframed it, and they call it the Red Devil, and I said, we're not going to call it that. I said, it's the Muti that's going to help mommy, so it's a love juice, and we changed it, so it's really reframing the words, which we're going to get back to later, and being very grateful for the medicine instead of seeing it as a punishment. So we all embraced it in a positive way. Okay. So that's sort of the story. I went through that whole thing, and as I was going through it, like I said, it was 2 years of treatment. I didn't stay off work the whole time. It was just for about 4 months I had to take off because of infection and things, so I stayed home. But then the rest of the time I went back to work, but obviously took it a bit easier. But then I wanted to understand more. I wanted more knowledge. Although I've always been a seeker, I've always read a lot, I've always studied, I think I put it into like different gear when that happened, because I had a bit more time, which was nice. So I really studied like nobody's business. I wanted to understand the message behind all this. And I was just studying and reading and gathered so much information. I had books that I was just filling up with information. And I just had this moment where when you're going through the journey, you just hear of people like not being so lucky. I heard of a woman who died getting the port put in because it's straight into your jugular, and she just died from that, not even the cancer. So I just thought, sure, if anything does go wrong, not that I'm expecting it to go wrong, I want to put all this into something. So my boys, if they don't have me for long or whatever, have a guide, a light, something shining that they can learn from what I've had to learn. So I put it into the book. And also for my patients, I would see the different faces every day, but the same sort of thing. Every day, everyone, we all linked, we're all doing the same thing. So I thought, well, there's a message that we can all take from this. So that's why I started writing Switch Your Light On. So that was every night. It sounds like a lot of hard work, but it actually wasn't, because it was effortless. I loved it so much that I'd put everyone to bed at 8 o'clock. My husband made a little office space for me. It even had like a little heater in the back for a pad on my back. And I put music on, like tranquil meditation music, and I set the whole thing up, a piece of chocolate and a coffee. And that was my time from 8 to midnight every night. I would sit there and I would just talk to my children. And I was typing away this book as if I was talking to them. So it was coming from absolutely a loving space. And hopefully as you read it, you can feel my heart like I'm talking to you from my heart, not the head. There are some head bits, but you need them. Okay, so that's sort of the journey and how it all came about. So that's why we're here. Okay. So I had to learn how to change things a little bit. And hopefully for you, we can start to do that. Okay, so now it's your turn to do some work. So as I've explained, so I'm a mommy of 4. You also know that I'm a clinical psychologist, and a bit about me, but now I want to know who you are. So on your little booklet there, I want you to write in that first little block, describe yourself in a few words. Who are you? If you had to describe yourself, what's your name? Like, you're a mom, you're a white female, whatever. Just who are you if you had to describe yourself? And don't overthink it, just be practical about it. Just practically, who are you? If someone just wanted to know who you are, you'd give them a quick bio. Who are you? So I'd say put about 3 or 4 little points. You might say you're a dad, you're a golfer, you're a dancer, whatever. Got it? Okay, so the first part's not too hard, right? Now, be honest. Now, don't try and be good. Be honest. If you had to rate yourself, like during the day, on an average day when you're running around, how does it feel? So now you're going to only use feeling words. How does it feel to be yourself? So describe yourself. How does it feel to be you most of the time? So if I had to monitor you on your watch and check in with you like 4 or 5 times a day, on the weekend when you're with your family and kids, or in the office space, or just running around in your car, be honest. Most of the time, give me a couple of words. So it might be irritated, rushed, annoyed, excited, happy, stressed, sad. What does it feel like if I had to monitor you like a pulse rate? Actually, the emotional words that your body feels like when you're running around an average day at the moment. It's not how you've always been, but how are you feeling the last while? No one's going to see it, so you don't have to be worried about what you write. Think about the spaces you're in a lot. When you're with your kids, in the kitchen, rushing to sport, whatever. How does it actually feel like compared to obviously the face you're putting on? Maybe when you're sitting by yourself on the weekend in the lounge, how does it feel? You wake up on a Sunday morning after a heavy Saturday night. Okay, everyone good? Now, how would you prefer to feel in the absence of all your concerns? If all your fears, if I had a magic wand and I could swish them all away, if all your biggest fears in life, financial worries, time restrictions, whatever, if all your fears were gone, being lonely, whatever, how would you feel? In the absence of all your concerns, if all your dreams came true, how would it feel to be you? Safety wasn't an issue. Give me 3 or 4 words that would describe how you would feel if all your dreams came true. In the absence of your concerns, how would you feel? Strange that we haven't spent time thinking about that. Eh? When I wrote that down, I thought, how many of us actually take time to write, how would I prefer to feel? We're just living our lives. We haven't actually, we design so many things. We design our house when we want to build a new house. We design our office space. We design so many things, our car to the details, and we want the rims and the blah, blah, blah. But we don't really design, how would I really want to feel? Okay, got it. Okay, so the brave ones, whoever wants to share a little bit to make this a bit more real for us, is if you look at those two, like, first of all, who are you? You've described yourself with a couple of bio things. Okay, so if I use myself, I'm a psychologist, I'm a mommy, I'm a this, I'm a that. That's not really who I am though, right? That's just what I do. But I often say, and I'll repeat this as we go, you didn't come here to become a human doing. And that's the nickname my kids had given me. They said, you do it all Dom. And that was like, they just said it like as a joke, oh, she's do it all Dom. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've become a human doing. I do so much, but how am I being? I didn't come here to become a human doing, I came here to be a human being. So I'm losing the essence, what makes me me. So the ego is all about doing. The true self is all about being. So who are you being at the bottom? What are some of the words, just throw out, that you said, if you had all your things that come true and you had absence of your concerns, how would it feel to be you? Give me some words. Motivated.
Grateful.
Grateful. Happy.
Contented.
Content. Energetic. Okay, see those words? That is describing your being. That's really who you are. Now look at the middle one. How does it feel to be you right now? Just throw a few words out.
Under pressure.
Under pressure. So stressed. Overwhelmed is a big one, yeah? We can all relate. Distracted. Stretched, yeah? Bored, yeah. Okay, so those type of words are really how we can all relate to all those words, I think, at different times of our lives. That's not what we came here for, right? That's really your light shining dimly. Now we're talking about switching your light on. So I think of a rheostat, when you sort of dim the lights and put the lights, so just the resistance turns it down, bored, stressed, overwhelmed, blah, blah, blah. That's not who you are. So if you do being that a large percentage of the day, there's a supporting dialogue that matches that, and we're really going to dissect that today, okay? But it's really about becoming your true self, your authentic self, who you really are, and you're all very clear, because some people say, so what do you want? What do you want out of life? And a lot of people say, I don't know what I want. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know my purpose. That's not the issue here. All of you are quite capable of writing down how you want to be, how you want to feel. Your purpose is not in what you do. A lot of us get lost in thinking our purpose is our career or whatever. Sometimes it's built into our career, and that's great. But your purpose is about living on purpose, purposefully being yourself. So whatever you're doing is really just the stage, the platform that allows you to show up and express yourself as that being that you've just described on the last question. Everything, being a mom, being a dad, sport, your careers are just playgrounds. They're just stages that you get to arrive at, and those offer you an opportunity to express those sides of you, to express the loving side, the motivated side, the inspired side, the energetic side. That's what that's there for. That's all it is. We make it a much more bigger thing. So when our kids are doing subject choices and career guidance, they're freaking out because I don't know my purpose, I don't know what I want to be one day. That's not your purpose. Your purpose is for you to be who you really are. And we go through a process, a life journey, which I'm going to explain just now, that kind of makes that a bit tough, but it's really, I imagine it like those obstacle courses that they do and those challenges, what is it called, Gladiator, where they get to the other side and there's all these obstacle courses so that a stronger person comes out the other side. You really know your strength when you can get through that. And without that, then you really just stayed as you were. So sometimes we go through life wanting to dodge all the bullets and nothing to go wrong and all that, but really then you've kind of sidestepped the whole obstacle course, and are you any stronger or expanded than how you arrived? No. So we talk about problems. Are those obstacles really problems, or are they necessary for the expansion to happen? See? So there's never really a problem. Okay. Right. So you got that. Now a little bit of head work. So I'm going to read it a bit because I want to break it down properly for you. It's in your notes, in your workbook. We're going to go step by step. So this diagram is from Bob Proctor. And super, super important diagram. I really resonated with this when I was studying it. And as you can see, there's two guys there. There's the depression guy, sort of the unwell person, and there's the wellness person. And you can see the unwell guy is disintegrating and fading away, how we sometimes feel. And that's kind of how I felt. The shocker for me was when I got told I've got to go and have that surgery. I obviously at that point didn't know it was cancerous, but I was so excited when I got onto the bed for the surgery. And that's such a weird feeling. I was so thrilled that I could just sit in a hospital bed for a little while and I didn't have to be anywhere. And I didn't have to feel guilty for not being anywhere. And that shocked me. I was like, how the hell can you be excited to not have to move, you know? But that's the level of how busy I was. And I was thrilled that I had a good excuse to sit down for a little bit. And I lay in that hospital bed. It was like heavenly, you know? I was lying in that bed and I was like, thank you. I've got 2 days of this, you know? Which is not a healthy thought. But you only realize that after. So when you feel like you're fading away, we can resonate with that guy. So the beginning is, there's two processes happening all the time. There's ignorance versus knowledge. Now you only know what you know. So you've got to have compassion for yourself. You can't beat yourself up about it. So come from a place of compassion and kindness. Don't be hard on yourselves. I think it's Dr. Phil always says, when you know better, you do better. So we don't know what we don't know. And as you're learning, and as I was learning, you know more. Knowledge is power. So the more you know, you can do things differently. So you're always doing, even at that point, lying in the hospital bed, whatever, I was doing the best I could. That was the best I could with what I had at that time, with 4 little puppets needing me and trying to build a big practice and whatever. You, each and every one of you, are doing the absolute best that you can do in your life. So don't beat yourself up if you're not being your best self right now. It's okay. It's you just where you're at. And as you gain more knowledge and more information, you'll adjust things, you'll tweak things, and eventually you're growing. That's the point. You didn't come out the womb knowing all this. That's why we're here. Okay, so the knowledge part is critical. So the reason we sort of, in the unwellness, it starts with a lack of knowing. The next thing is doubt and worry versus understanding. And I want to read a little bit here. It says, when you're struggling in life, you often take vital information which has caused you to make your own assumptions based on your perceptions of a situation. The lack of insight leads to ignorance, which is how the negative cycle begins. So the other day I was wearing an animal print shirt, so it was cream and black. And if you had closed your eye like that and looked at it through, try and do that. If you do that, you can see it's just a tiny hole, right? If you had zoomed up onto my shirt, onto the black stripes, and I'd asked you, what color is my shirt? You would have said it's black. And you would have argued it to the death with me that it's black. And if the other person had come in the room and done that onto the cream part of my shirt, I would have said, what color is my shirt? You would have said cream. And now we're both arguing. One says, I'm 100% sure it's black. The other one says, 100% sure it's cream. But as we open our hands wider and wider and wider and we create more space and it gets bigger, we've got a bigger perspective, you don't have to beat each other up that we thought it was black. It's all we could see. It's all we knew at that time. But suddenly you see, oh, it's black and cream. It's a leopard print, whatever, animal print shirt. We see more, we understand more. So as your perspective broadens, and that's what's going to happen as we go through this journey together, you're like, oh, now I get it. Now I know why I do that. Now I know why my partner drives me crazy and does that, or my kids or whatever. You're like, I get it. Okay. So there's that part of understanding. So then it says, from the not knowing and the ignorance, obviously there stems tremendous doubt and worry. Okay. So that's where our bad feelings come from. As the doubt and worry creeps in. The intellectual mind assesses the situation, and negative thoughts obviously start to sabotage you. So your sabotaging thoughts and limiting belief creeps in. The more you doubt yourself and worry about whether you're going to be okay or not, the more you revert back to the past as a reference. So your past is kind of all you know of how it's been. So that's what you're going to revert back to is, well, from the past it hasn't really gone that well, so I assume it's not going to be good now. Reminding yourself that you've been unsuccessful in the past. So obviously if I had an issue in grade 1 or 2 with doing orals or something, this would be very hard for me. I don't have a reference to that, so this feels fine. I don't have any memory bank that's going to say this is terrifying. Okay. Then you fast forward to the future and predict probably it's going to be unsuccessful. So you're either going to the past where you sort of got a reference, and then you jump to the future and you cut and paste that into the future. Okay, so the past is the biggest predictor of the future because we cut and paste it forward. So it doesn't need to be like that. Okay. So then you start, as you look down, we go into fear versus faith. Okay. You start to feel feelings of fear, that I can't handle this, whatever's going on, I'm not going to cope. Those are the thoughts and feelings that start to trickle in. And obviously leads to a lot of anxiety. So the emotional mind then receives a panic signal. Even though you still need to continue to function and meet the demands of everyday life, you've got to keep going, right? So you can't now just stop and have a fit. You've got to keep going. So you sort of embody that inside of you. And you start to suppress it. So you can see that the fear and the anxiety, as you suppress that, so you're worried, you're anxious, whatever financial thing is stressing you out, or kids are stressing you out, or your partner is in a bad space with you, but you still got to drive kids to school, you've still got to make dinner, you've still got to get to work and get behind your computer. But so you suck it up, push it in, carry on. Okay, you don't come to work and carry on freaking out, but inside it's still happening. Okay, from a place of faith, though, interesting, faith and fear, both you can't see. The fear, like, where is the actual fear? You can't see it. It's in your mind, imagining, in your imagination, how bad it's going to be. Like, a lot of our worries about safety or whatever, we've heard stories that has happened to someone or whatever, but in this moment, it might not even be happening to you. It's just in your mind, the anticipation of whatever you're freaking out about. Faith is the same. You can't see it, but which one do you want to lean on? So they're both, it says, it's both of them you can't see. Which one would you prefer to lean on? Okay. So if we stick with the depression guy, you can imagine that you gradually become more and more depressed over time. As time passes, daily activities become increasingly difficult and unfulfilling, and your physical body translates the emotional signals into a fight or flight response. Okay, so we can all relate to that. And then obviously you create dis-ease. You don't feel at ease in your body. And the suppression over time, the dis-ease creates diseases. I mean, how many autoimmune diseases, as like the most common thing at the moment, is the amount of stress we have. Most people have autoimmune diseases. So they can't really, unexplained infertility, fibromyalgia, all those things. Even with you hear a lot of people talking about chronic fatigue. You hear that a lot. So there's not like an actual thing, but their bodies is just in a state of total dis-ease. Whereas on the other side, relying on faith, that's sort of the passion in your heart that everything's going to be okay, leaning on that, leads to you obviously to a place of well-being. Because if I'm not anticipating impending doom, and I know that somehow we're going to be okay, you're feeling coming from a place of wellness. Your body is not in a fight or flight response, and obviously you're going to have acceleration, expression. You expand it so you can share yourself. Rather than the suppression, you're going to close up. Okay. So when you're at ease, you're at a place of creation. And that's when you create beautiful things, when you come from your heart, okay? Whereas when you're a place of fight or flight and you're in dis-ease, you start to decay, disintegrate, and obviously fall apart, burnout, hospital, diseases, whatever. Okay, so those are the two processes. And I think a lot of us can relate to how we can be the one guy disintegrating. But hopefully by the end of today, you know exactly how to be the guy of wellness, okay? Right. So we're quickly going to do an exercise of just learning where do you tend to put your power. It's very quick. We're going to do set A and then we're going to do set B. So a few questions over the page. So set A, we're just going to use this example of the activity today, is what reservations do you have about the workshop? So obviously hearing you had to come here and do this, and there's a few thoughts, past events are going to come to mind. You're going to have some reservations. You've done training before. You've kind of been in school. You've heard of lectures. There's a preconceived idea. Just write down one or two words there of what reservations did you have about how it's going to be. You hear the word training or workshop and you're like, oh. Yeah. Well, not what did you have coming into before you knew what it was about? You heard just like, we got a workshop, we're going to do some training, some lectures, and it's like, oh, you think of school, studying, reading, all of the above. Then what judgments have I made about myself or anything so far leading up to today? So what judgments did you have about yourself? Like, oh, I'm not a book person, or I don't do reading. I haven't studied in forever. I can't sit still for that long. Then what inner conflict have I experienced? So it might have been a bit hard for you to maybe come and change lanes. You might be very busy in your normal day, and taking time out is hard for you. Or sacrificing, you had to leave something to be here. There might have been a bit of a conflict, a time conflict, responsibilities conflict. Then how have you resolved all of the above? What did you do about the tension you experienced? You just block it out? Just suck it up? So how do you resolve it? What message has your subconscious been getting? So what do you believe about yourself after these few questions? Thinking about the past and your reservations. Subconsciously, that I'm not what? Maybe finishing things is hard for you. Okay. Now you can leave that and turn over the page. Just checking everyone's still with us. Once everyone's turned over, then I'll know we're ready to start the next page. Okay, ready? Right, set B. A little bit of a different vantage point that you're going to look at this from. What vision do I have for the workshop now? So what's your vision? And notice the words I've used. What vision do I have? What's your vision for the workshop?
I think it was page before, right?
So this is set B now.
That's the bottom of the page.
Okay. Okay, so we're on, what's your page of the set B number? Okay, page 6. So what vision do I have for the workshop? Okay, next one. What positive end result do I expect? So what positive end result do I expect? then what personal gifts or passion am I committed to contributing to the workshop? What are your gifts and contributions? Then how have I affirmed the above? In other words, how have I started to achieve some of the above? So making the time, showing up, writing stuff down, whatever. Like, how have you shown up? Putting your phone on silent. So now when you look at that from this vantage point, what messages has my subconscious been getting? What do I believe about myself now? From this vantage point, what do I now believe about myself? I can what? Or I am what? Okay? So, two different feelings, right? Hopefully, set A feels different to set B. Where do you tend to put your power most of the time? Set A or set B? You want to say set B, right? But where do you tend to put it most of the time? Sometimes we tend to put it in A. We give our power away because all our past and limiting beliefs creep in there because our references and how it's been before. And then we fear about how it's going to be. So then we give our power away. But the second set was coming from your vision. What do you have? What are your gifts to contribute? So where you become the source, not the thing is the source to make me happy. Where I'm now the source, and what do I get to bring? Remember I said everything's a stage? Remember I said it's just a playground? Shakespeare says all the world's a stage, merely players. Same thing. So now you start to come from that perspective that I'm the source of my joy and my happiness, and it's what I bring to the table. It's not what I'm going to get from the thing. So it's who I get to be. So rather reclaiming your power by set B, always coming from that space rather than giving your power away. And it's so easy to do that. Our egos want to blame and criticize and put things down, but then when we take responsibility, like we saw in that video, taking responsibility for who you are, very different vantage point. Okay, got it. Is that helpful? Okay. Right, we're going to change it up a little bit. You've done too much work already. We're going to have some fun and learn a bit about ourselves. We said point 2 was the journey of self-discovery. So I'm using the Enneagram. Those of you who are not familiar about it, it's really just a tool, a very, very valuable tool that shares some insight into a bit of how your personality is developed. So your persona, the mask you wear, okay? I want to just stress that it's not really who you are, it's who you've become. Okay, so your Enneagram looks like that. There's 9 numbers, okay? And as you can see, it's a complete circle. We are all actually all of them to some degree, okay? But when we're born, it's sort of like a whole circle. And as we start to grow up, we go through certain experiences. And that circle starts to sort of warp a little bit. It gets some like wings coming up. And certain numbers develop more than others as strategies and coping mechanisms. So as little children, we're very clever. We start to cotton on to how you're going to get love. So we're seeking love because love is what keeps us alive. True? They did a experiment during the Nazi concentration camps, which is so horrible to discuss, but they took a bunch of babies and they gave both groups food and sustenance and whatever a baby needs to survive. But the one group, they gave no affection and no love, and they didn't cradle them or hold them or anything, and the other group, they did. And all the babies died that didn't get love. So from an instinctual point of view as babies, we're looking for love because we know that we need people to take care of us while we're little. So we start to develop little strategies by watching our world and seeing how it is, and we notice when we get the, oh, well done, or mom's face smiles, or dad's like, yay, or picks me up when I do this, or I say that, or if I'm funny, or if I'm whatever. So we watch those expressions as babies, and we start to do more of that or less of that in order to cope, and you start to develop the persona, the mask. And if you look on your, does anyone have, they switch their light on book? There's one. Can I borrow that for a second? Thanks. If you look at the cover, if you look very carefully, when you first look at it, you just see that face, right? So that's sort of the mask we wear, the persona. And as we go on, you're going to start seeing, do you see the second face there? See, that's the you relationship. So there's the mask you wear, so it's the human and the being, and integrating those two. Okay. So there was some creative stuff that flowed there. Okay, so you've all done your Enneagram, you went onto the link, you've done your little test, and you've all got a number, right? I'm going to speak about all the numbers. We have almost all the numbers here, and there's I think one that's not here, and it doesn't matter, we'll talk about it anyway. And I'm going to give you a few extra little bits that you can take home and questions to ask yourself. So you are, remember, this is not who you are. Be careful not to pigeon yourself into now I am the perfectionist and it's actually all about why we're learning who you are is learning to loosen the grip of the persona you've taken on and to relax it a little bit. And it's all about balance. Nature seeks harmony. So you are part of nature, it's seeking balance. So learning to balance your type and still celebrate your essence. So yes, you're naturally more of a perfectionist or this or that. That's absolutely fine. It's to hero that, but to keep it in balance, because anything out of balance obviously creates chaos, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Okay, so shall we change into our little groups and start learning a bit about the Enneagram types in a bit more detail? Welcome back, everyone. So we have joined as a little group to go through your Enneagrams, and a lot of you are representing all the numbers. Don't be scared, it's lots of fun. And remember, there's no better number. You don't wish to be a 2 or a 3 or a 4. There's no good number and bad number. They're all great numbers. They're just representing slightly different traits. And remember, you actually do have all the numbers, just you inhibit some and you accentuate others. That's about it. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about each one. So the number ones, we're going to start off with our number one in our group. Number ones are the reformers, the perfectionists. They are principled, purposeful, self-controlled perfectionists. They dislike sloppiness and error, attracted to order and a high standard for themselves and others. Okay, so with that you can already hear the zing. That person's already like up and straight. I'm also a one. You can just see that as little kids, remember we said we developed that as we were little. So when we were little, we learned from what was going on around us that being good was preferable, and that's how you got safe and got love. And I have 3 brothers. I had 2 older brothers, so if I could use that as an example, obviously they're boys and they had their moments of being super naughty and whatever, so I saw them get in trouble and being naughty, and I learned very quickly that's not what you do. So I just went the exact opposite to try and keep it safe. So that's how my little persona obviously started to develop, is learning just don't do that and you'll be fine. So I started obviously obsessing a bit about being a good girl instead of being bad. And you can see that complex. And then you start to really divorce yourself from the other side of you that wouldn't have got love, that you would have got rejection from. So straight away you can see why it says they dislike sloppiness and error. We don't like things not to be slick and properly done. And so people that come across as a bit lazy or not finishing things properly and doing it nicely, Like when my son makes his bed and it's just almost throw the thing on and you just cringe inside. Only because, not because it's bad. It's just what happened. I mean, making the bed, you make the bed. You don't get a naughty badge when you die because you made the bed perfectly or you didn't. Nobody actually cares. It's just you've divorced that side of you because that's how you wouldn't have got love, and you got love from doing it perfectly and no wrinkles. So that's a side of you actually didn't accept. And it's now learning to balance that you're not only a good girl when you do everything perfectly, and sometimes when we let our hair down and we color out the lines, it's actually okay. But you've pushed that so far away that people actually annoy you that are not doing things nicely. And you can imagine how that can cause conflict with your children, with your partners. I mean, my husband's not a one at all. And I love him very, very much. But you can imagine, I mean, we were in varsity together and in hostel, and I used to go to his room and the bed's almost, if you're lucky, the duvet's done, and I was just like cringing, because I don't want one wrinkle on the bed when we finish. And to this day, those are our biggest fights. He always used to say, it's not a show house, and I'll make him redo the bed because it's not perfect. So learning to relax that side of me. Otherwise, you're not really going to have such a fun adventure. And the ironic thing about a one is that we all have a stress point and a growth point. So when you are stressed, you lean to a different number or overwhelmed, and when you are relaxed and happy, you lean to a different number. So ones, when they stress, actually lean towards a 4. And a 4 is your sort of more emotional, take things really to heart, sensitive people. So it's a lot heavier than when we are in our growth space, we go to a 7. That's your party animal. That's your happy-go-lucky, fun. So actually, when I'm on holiday, I lean to a 7, and super fun to be on holiday with me, like just action all the time. But when you're not on holiday and you're doing everyday life, which is actually more of the time, you got to be careful that you're balancing and are not leaning into this heavy zone the whole time. Okay, so that's how you know when you're getting yourself out of balance. Then a little something to take home is, what do the ones want? The ones want justice to be upheld. Okay, so in other words, to be good. So they're really concerned with things not being done properly or right. So what do they need? They need a space to be creative, spontaneous, and not feel that they have to be perfect. So giving yourself permission to exhale, is big for a one. And that creative space is very favorable for a one. So like, I'm a dancer. That's my happy space, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I go to my advanced dance class. I can't wait. I don't care what's happening, I'm there. So that's your creative space. I paint, I do art. That's a space to not need to always be perfect. Some questions you can ask yourself as a one is, how can you release your anger when it comes up? Because ones tend to struggle with anger because it's a control thing. If you need everything to be perfect, you become a bit controlling. And if it's starting to slip, the anger and aggression starts to come up to protect, in protective mode. So it's, how can you release your anger when it comes up? When people frustrate you, including yourself, because you're the hardest on yourself, how can you practice compassion? So not just compassion to others, compassion to yourself as well. And remember, you all have many of the other numbers. So if you are a 7, but sometimes you have a lot of 1 in you, listen to this as well, because this will help you. Okay. All right, so that's our number ones. Helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, anything you want to ask or add?
No, I could identify with a lot of what you're saying.
Okay.
When my family comes in the door, they leave their shoes by the door, drives me
Yeah.
mad.
Yeah, and it's deep breaths, deep breaths. Okay, perfect. Because remember, when we're gone and all is said and done, like I speak to a lot of people, obviously going through grief processes and things, and people that have lost kids, and they always say to me, oh, if I could just have that mess again, I'd take it any day, And my son uses that on me all the time because he's terrible with his bath towel. And he says, one day, Mom, I'm going to leave home and you're going to wish that bath towel was on the floor. so I'm just like, don't use my stuff on me. Just hang up the bloody towel. Okay, number 2s. Our helpers are so sweet. I just have such compassion for number 2s because I think of this little child just wanting to help mommy and daddy and going to get slippers and getting them a cup of tea and just doing anything to be as helpful as possible. Okay, so our number 2s are the helpers. They are caring, generous, people pleasers. And now we've got to take care of our people pleasers, and we all have that sometimes in us, and that can get abused. They dislike solitude, impersonal dealings, and are attracted to service and making personal connections. Okay? So when they're in a stressed state, they go to 8, and 8 are the protectors. So it can become quite aggro and militant. And when they are relaxed, they go to their growth, which is a sensitive, connected place. So the feelings come out. So you really do feel from your heart. So what do they need? What do number 2s need? They need to be needed. Okay? So you can already see that little child needing to be needed and having compassion for that, why they like that. Okay? So what do they need to connect with their own needs and desires. Learning to ask yourself, what do I need? Not always, what can I do for others? Okay? And learning to take care of themselves. Because remember, the most selfless thing you can do is to be selfish. And that sounds hard. But if you can't, like when you're in an airplane and they drop the oxygen mask and they say, first put your own mask on before you give your kids. It seems like so selfish. How can I save myself before my child? But the truth is, if you don't put your own oxygen mask on and you faint trying to help, you're not going to help anybody. So it's the same concept. Learn to be kind to yourself first, and it seems selfish, but you actually have more to give. They always say serve from the saucer, not the cup. So the overflow is where you give. And people always want to give first from their own cup, and then it's so empty that you become aggro and irritable because you've actually got nothing left to give. But if you're serving from the saucer, you are full, and it's just abundance that you just got to give. Okay, makes sense. So what are the questions I can ask myself? Are you giving to others from a selfless place? Now that's something to think about, because often we're doing a lot, and you're going to the hospital to drop flowers for so-and-so, and then you're going to take someone's laundry thing. You're doing a lot, but are you really wanting to do it? And it's within what you're wanting to do, or are you doing it to get a recognition or something back, to stay safe, to get that love that you're always looking for? And it's a hard thing to be honest with yourself, and sometimes to stop, because what's going to happen, it's sort of over-investing. It's like a bad investment. You've sort of overcapitalized on your investment, there's no return. When they don't give you the thank you, oh my God, the party is amazing, you just about want to kill them because you've gone through so much, all for that thank you, and then the bloody thank you doesn't come. And you can think of your partners. Often women do that, like we make amazing dinner and it's like, just walks off. And you've got to remember, you didn't make the meal to get the thank you. That's a bonus, and it's a cherry on the top. You made the meal, like we said in the beginning, because it's the stage and the platform that you get to express a side of you. You get to express that loving, warm, nurturing side where I get to cook for my husband or my wife or whatever, and you love to be that. So you're grateful that you got to be that. That's already the gift, and you being able to express that side of you. The gift is not the thank you. That's just the bonus. And it's hard to remember that. But it's a massive distinction, because you're going to walk away, you've won either way. Whereas the other way around, you're going to lose a large portion of the time if it's not happening the way you want it. Okay, and then, or do you help people because they will validate and make you feel important, and it's okay to give as long as it's for the right reasons? Ask yourself, what do you, capital U, love to do? Okay. Got it? How do you feel? Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Can you resonate with any of it?
Yeah, definitely. I think a good friend of mine once said that same thing that you said about giving is out of an overflow. So if you think you've got a bucket,
Yes.
and if you giving, you're almost like punching holes in the bucket,
Correct.
and so the bucket can never be
Full,
filled
yeah.
enough. So you've actually got to make sure you've got a healthy bucket. So your personal. Make sure you're
Your
healthy within
container's
your
full.
container's full, and then give from the
Exactly.
overflow.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, our number 3s. Every time I say number 3, when I was studying this, they said, just think of Lady Gaga. Now, I always think of Lady Gaga. So, the creative, artistic, entertainer, vibrant one. And if I think of a little 1 or 2-year-old, you can imagine that one running, dancing around on their tiptoes. It's just too cute. So when they're stressed, they lean towards a 9. Okay, and the 9 is the peacemaker and not wanting to ruffle any feathers and whatnot. And when they're in a growth space, they are the loyalists. So they're your number 6, and they're your go-to. They're always there for you, and they're amazing. Okay, so what do they want? They want to achieve. Okay, so think of that little child cottoned on. If I achieve and I do well, I'm going to get love, right? So think of even your kids as we're going through the numbers. You can straight away think of what numbers they are. So what do they need? They need a space to feel that they are enough, okay? To build a sense of worthiness regardless of how they are, and a place where they don't feel image conscious. So when they were developing their self-consciousness, when 4 years old starts to kick in, self-consciousness is there. So just having a space where they can be themselves, and that they don't have to do or achieve to be enough, that they are worthy and enough from the day they were born. Okay, and remembering that. Questions you can ask yourself. If you didn't feel the need to win, what would you do? If you took competition out of it, winning, excelling, what would you do just for, because you can? That's the question, because I can. So whenever my husband asks me, should I do this, shouldn't I do this, and I say, do it just because you can. You live once, and when there's an agenda behind it, I'm doing it because it'll be good for my career, it'll be good for this, it'll make me lots of money, already the alarm bell should be going off. You're doing it without any agenda, just because you can. And that's when you come from that heart space, okay? And what if you already saw yourself as a winner? How would you feel? And what can you do today to fulfill your soul? Okay, so do you see it's now achievers tend to be outward bound, and it's learning to do it for me, not to get anything or to get accolades or to get love or to get, it's you stop being the source of your love. You do it for you because it's just the shining star that you are. Helpful?
Yes.
Do you want to expand on number 3?
Not really. I've studied it a little bit before, but I love those questions. I think are very important.
Okay,
Yeah,
just remembering that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, let's move on to number 4, the individualists. Okay, I already think of family members that are number 4, it just makes me laugh. Okay, so those are the ones that want to be understood, all right? So it says here, the 4s are intuitive, expressive, individualists, and temperamental. So those are your emotional people. They dislike uniformity, regulation, attracted to creativity and putting their personal mark on things. So my husband is a 4, and I'm trying to move into an estate. Do you think it's possible? No, because he doesn't want the rules. But yeah, so those are your heartfelt people, and I always say I married his heart, you know. So those are awesome people. When they are stressed, though, they go to 2. They become super helpful, trying to get love by giving. And you can imagine when they're not getting back what they hoped they were going to get, they get upset. In their growth space, though, because they're very intuitive people, I call him my guru. They are very intuitive people. They actually are amazing and quite like the perfectionist. They're very principled and upstanding. Okay, so what do you need to know? So they just want to be understood. Okay, that's their main thing. What do they need? They need to find the authentic self, who their authentic really is. So sort of at that point where, what am I going to study? What am I going to be in the world is super overwhelming for a 4. Okay? Anyone a 4 in this group? No, okay, so married to a 4. Okay, so that sort of feeling just slightly out of place, you know, when they're deciding their career, going into their purpose in life, there's always this little feeling of just not clicking in and not quite sure. So their challenge is to challenge themselves to build confidence and realize that while their emotions are part of them, they are not their emotions. So to separate themselves from the emotions are just frequencies you feel, it's not who you are. And to create a little bit of space between that and recognizing that you can actually choose a different emotion. Okay, that Once it's embodied you, it's almost like they've been taken over and there's nothing they can do, and they surrender to the emotion and they don't have to. Okay? So what questions could they ask themselves? What if you felt your emotions and then let them go? And then, what do you want to feel right now? Because they forget that you have a choice. What do you want, underline want, to feel right now? What can you do to feel that way? So there's things you could do to rechannel. So I say it's like an antenna. You can choose a different channel. Even when you like watching DSTV, ask yourself, if you're stuck on a channel, what channel do I actually want to watch? And you can actually choose that channel. And what can you do to get out your emotions and connect with your physical body? Their physical body is a huge space to help them connect to that. So like playing a musical instrument, dancing, doing artwork, whatever, connecting with their hands often to something that they can get the emotions out. So processing it, in other words. Okay, number 5s. Who's on number 5 here? Right. Okay, number 5s. The investigator. Okay, they are perceptive, innovative, secretive, and a bit detached. So they're the undercover agents. They dislike intrusion on their time and space. They're attracted to depth and learning. So you have a tendency to sort of go into your little bubble, like your space, like your room, like to get it, like pull away from everyone and everything. At your stressed place, when you're stressed, you become a 7. So when you're stressed, you're sort of up in the air, flying it on the wing, on the cuff of your sleeve type of thing, just winging it, you know. When you're on your growth space, you're an 8. Very protective, very solid, very dominant. So you're actually a strong persona. Okay. What do they want? That's why I said in a growth space you are very strong. You want to feel capable. Okay. So you can see as a little boy, if you didn't feel capable, it doesn't necessarily mean anything bad happened, but you might have been over-mothered, or everyone's trying to help you, maybe the last born, and it tends to be if it's smothered, or maybe no one's there guiding you. Could have been either or. But you tend to withdraw and just like, I can't do it, so I'll just go and hide in my corner. Okay, so I want to feel capable. What do they need? They need to get out of their heads and into the world. So lost in your head, trying to figure it out. And the only way, the best way to learn is to get involved, right? To do things that take courage and interact with others. So that's the toughest part, is to get out of that fear zone and just throw yourself in and realize, I can swim. Not sitting sort of studying how to swim forever outside the pool. And you just got to get in. So what can you ask yourself? What if the only moment you have is right now? So that question of, if you were going to die like just now, would you do it? So many things that you stop, that you're about to do, you'll be like, stop it, I'm doing it, I'm going to die anyway. And you would probably go and enter the singing competition or sign up for the whatever gym thing. Like now you just go for it. Okay? So ask yourself that question, and it might just prompt you to go that little bit more, okay? And what if you never researched anything again, went out into the world, and you're fully capable? Because you think all the information's outside. And where is it all? For every single one of us, our genius is inside. You have it all. It's just we've been dumbed down. So it's in there. Now it's just believing that and letting yourself reach in from a place of passion and pulling it out. It'll come. Everything you need to know will come in the moment if you're passionate about it and you love to. Obviously there's certain things you've got to learn, but then once you've learned it, like to cook or to play guitar, like you know the chords, you know the whatever, now you're still studying it. You just got to get in there and cook with your heart or play with your heart, and the music will come out of you. You can't, there's a point where you can't study anymore. You just got to go. Okay. And then what would you do if you felt like it was okay to fail and try again? So being scared to fail often stops you. And recognizing that there is no such thing as failure is only feedback. You're going to tattoo that to yourself. There is no such thing as failure. There's only ever feedback. So if you can't ever fail, why would you stop yourself doing anything? Just go for it. And if you'll get feedback and it'll say more left, more right, or that's absolutely not for you, It's like when you go try on jeans in a shop. Like, you're not going to be scared to try it on because what if it doesn't look nice in the change room? You'll try it and then you're like, oh, skinny's not me or whatever, until it fits, right? But you don't take it personally. The difference is you taking it personally. So then you become scared. Instead of just, information I didn't know about myself, or now I know I actually hate that, or whatever. You taking it as you failed instead of just more information. Helpful? Okay. Anything you want to ask or add?
Sure. No, I really resonate with everything that you just said, and yeah, I feel like it's gonna help me like with my training as well.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Good.
taking one step at a time.
Take those chances.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just remember, what if that question of, what if I'm not here anymore? Would I do it anyway? Would I have done it now? Okay. All right, good. Super. Sixes. We got a 6 in the house? Yes. Okay. So number 6 is our loyalists. Okay. They're committed. They're responsible. They can be anxious and suspicious, so always sort of looking ahead, getting too far in the future. They dislike unpredictability, rapid change, and attracted to clear structure and foresight. You like to know how things are going to be to feel safe. Okay, so when you are stressed, you go towards the 3, so you act up a little bit. When you're in a growth space, you go to 9, so you are the peacemaker, you're sort of the stable one. Okay? So you can imagine really the family man. I can predict that sort of feel about you. So what nuggets I can give you about a 6. What do they really want? They want to feel safe. So whatever happened as a little boy, and number 6 didn't feel safe for some reason, might have had quite an overbearing, dominant father figure or whoever, and it's not necessarily that they're bad. They might have just had a very dominating voice or a very intimidating way about how they talk, and you can picture when you're a child, that's a lot, So there's already the I'm not safe, may have been exposed to things that were a bit scary, seen other people go through things that are scary, or yourself went through stuff that could have been a little bit overwhelming. It could have been a time of the era that you were in. It was just a time of when you were born, 0 to 8, that was a bit hectic. And so there's lots of, it's not necessarily just your direct family, it could have been, surrounding you at that time. So they want to feel safe. What do they need? They need to build a sense of grounding within themselves that keeps them stable. So you've got to find that grounding within you, okay? Because if your environment didn't feel safe, it's learning to find the safety's always been in you, never in your environment, okay? Anyway, so to explore and to step outside their box to see that the world isn't all that harsh. So you tend to look for safety outside and learning that it's within you, that your safety is actually here, that whatever you're going to have to cope with, you can cope with it, not because outside is necessarily safe or not safe, it's because it's who you are. Okay. And the questions you can ask yourself is, what if you know that everything was going to work out always? What if you knew that? If you knew that everything was always going to be okay, despite circumstances. So I didn't say the circumstance is always going to be great, but if you always knew you were going to be okay, what would you do? What if you fully loved and trusted yourself? Would other people's word affect you as much as it does? So people can say things, they're entitled to their opinions, but you let it affect you more than it needs to. So what if you really knew who you were? Then it's just their opinion. Suddenly there's a sense of safety in grounding yourself, knowing who you are, and other people's opinions doesn't really sway you. You're solid. Okay. So that loyalist in you is looking for a tribe to have your back. When you have your own back, you'll be okay no matter where you are or what's going on. Okay. Good to know, hey? Anything you want to add, ask? Does it help you at all? Okay. It's a pleasure. Okay. Okay, perfect. Our 7s. Okay. 7s are the enthusiastic bunch, okay? They've got energy. They are spontaneous, versatile, talkative, scattered. So they've got so much energy, it's all over. They dislike limitations. So obviously, that scattered energy, they can get bored easily. Because they've got so much going on, they can just find things get dull and boring when there's only one thing to focus on, you know? So they dislike limitations or routines. They're attracted to new possibilities and excitement. So you can picture that little boy or that little girl. It's full of possibilities, you know? The world is sort of their playground. It's Disney World, and it's here to go and explore and have fun. And that enthusiasm is just infectious. And it's learning to balance that, because now you can imagine the world's not always Disney World, and there are certain times you've got to streamline things, and you know, some things are boring, and learning to cope with that. So, what do they want? They want to feel positive. They want to feel positive. So they do not like negative spaces or negative people too much. So the moaning and the groaning just saps the energy out of you. So you've divorced that side, the negative, dull side of you. You almost don't allow yourself to go there too much. The sad feelings, the not great feelings, you don't go there because you've learned being positive and happy and having a ball is where you got your love as a child. So you might have been around maybe a parent or maybe a mom going through a lot and was depressed or whatever it is that you learned keeping upbeat and happy, it was safer. And being sad might have burdened anyone, or you didn't want to put too much pressure on anybody, or you were just the clown and the whatever to try and keep everyone happy. That is the thing you took on. And you pushed away that you didn't get love if you were feeling the sad and miserable and moaning and complaining feelings. But the truth is you're allowed to feel both. That it's learning to love yourself unconditionally, not only loving yourself. And that's why you're drawn to the people that are happy and having a good time, and you kind of push away the people that are miserable, moaning and complaining. But when you truly love and accept yourself completely, it's both sides of yourself is balanced. Those people won't trigger you anymore. You can have deep compassion for where they're at and understanding. Doesn't mean you've got to sit down and sing kumbaya with them, but they don't trigger you. You don't feel bad about it. You just can have compassion and your heart goes out to them, but it doesn't bring you down and now you're having a miserable day because so-and-so is heavy. You know what I mean? You can carry on and stay in your good space, but they don't trigger you anymore. Okay. And what do they need? Okay. They need to learn that embracing their negative emotions is healthy. So you have judged emotions when you were little, that the good emotions, like the happy emotions, are good and the sad emotions are bad. There was a judgment. And that there's no good or bad emotions. There's just different frequencies. Okay. And what questions can you ask yourself? Is what if you saw your negative emotions as your friend rather than your enemy? Okay. So you've got to make friends with the darker side of you to balance yourself out so that you are more wise, so that you are more relatable. Is otherwise you are really just surviving relationships because you are trying to protect yourself when you're in a relationship with someone who's in a different headspace to you. And you're really just talking to them from a survival point of view with your backup, guarding yourself the whole time. So it ends up in a fight. Whereas if you're coming from a place of love and not a place of fear, not from a protective, you are relatable. You can have compassion. You can understand. I know that emotion. I've been there. I've felt that. It's okay. You're not going to die because a person's sad or heavy right now. This too shall pass. Eventually they'll be happy again, yes or no. And either way, I'm going to be fine. You know what I mean? Okay. And then, what if you knew that negative emotions were only temporary and they come and go? Like I said, this too shall pass. The scary part about the quote-unquote bad emotions is that you're scared they'll never go away.
Yeah.
And if I allow myself to feel it, what if I get stuck there?
Correct.
And the truth is, you will never get stuck there because nothing lasts forever. It doesn't rain forever, it doesn't snow forever, it's not winter forever. The sun will shine again. And what you know, that I'm going to say this many times during this workshop, what you resist persists. So if you're resisting it, you're just going to get more of it. And you can think of your relationship straight away. Is if you're resisting those emotions, the person's going to just crank it up more around you because they're not feeling heard or seen. And the second you can relax into it and have compassion and love because you're not scared that we're going to get stuck in winter, the sun will shine again, then I can be with you. I can hold you in that. And I'm not condoning it. You might be scared that I'm condoning this behavior, and then what if he or she's always like that? You're not condoning it, you're just being there for them. And they feel held, that little inner child in them feels held, and they actually drop it quicker because now they're over it. Because I was allowed to be sad. Okay. And yeah, that's you. Do you want to share or add?
No, I think just learning to acknowledge that negative emotion and actually identifying with people in that moment. I mean, my character is one that just shifts to
Shuts them out.
everything's going to be okay, just keep moving without acknowledging pain or emotion or fear or whatever.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, and then you become more relatable. So then people say, yes, there was such a nice exchange with you, you know, as opposed to just shutting them out because it can't deal with you.
it's just helpful that it's fear-based. But I never realized that going in was a fear-based thing, which naturally shifts me towards the positive. So,
Correct. Good.
yeah, so it's
Super. Well done. Nearly there, guys. Home stretch. The 8s. We got our number 8 here? No. Okay. All right. So number 8 are the challenges. Self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational. They dislike indecisiveness and indirectness, attracted to strength and strategic action. Okay, so those are your powerhouses. When they're in their stress place, they go to 5, so they go into their heads a bit. And when they're in their growth space, they go to 2, which is their helping side. Okay, so they are very intense. So what do they want? Intensity. They need to practice compassion and get comfortable with the resting, learning to slow down at times, to see their vulnerability isn't a bad thing. And questions they can ask themselves is, what if you were allowed yourself to rest? What if by allowing yourself to rest now, you can chase more challenge later? So it's learning just to slow it down a notch. Okay? And last but not least, our number 9s, which is our peacemakers. So number 9s are calm, reassuring, agreeable, complacent. They dislike tension, conflict, or fighting, and attracted to harmony and stability. Okay? So you can imagine we need those people in the world. So obviously as a little girl, you wanted everything to be calm and peaceful. All right? And they just want harmony. They want everyone to get along. So in your stressed space, you go towards a 6, which is the loyalist, being there for everyone. And in your growth space, you're actually very creative and enthusiastic, and you're able to shine brightly. So what do you need? You need to learn that conflict isn't always bad. So conflict for you has a very bad reputation. And learning that conflict is not a bad thing. It's okay to disagree. To learn that your desires do matter. So sometimes you're coming from that place of fear, so scared of any conflict that you actually shelve your own desires. Your own needs are put on the back burner to avoid the conflict. But it's okay to be heard. Conflict is important because we learn to put new boundaries. Okay? And to challenge themselves physically, mentally, and emotionally to learn to embrace discomfort. So 9s hate to be uncomfortable. So learning to, there's a guy that I follow, and he says he's a military guy, and he says embrace the suckness. And that's when you're at gym, I always think that embrace the suckness is that to get comfortable with the discomfort, and that's okay. You're not going to die. This too shall pass. And to push through. So even the discomfort of being in a conversation that might be hard, it's uncomfortable, but we're all going to be okay. All right? So what can you ask yourself? What if you expressed your needs and desires fearlessly? So nothing's going to happen. What if you knew, and you really knew, that your desires do matter? And lastly, what if you pushed through that uncomfortable feeling and found even more peace than you knew before? And I can give you all of these afterwards if you didn't get everything. But those are very important questions to ask yourself. Okay, so that's our Enneagram. Do you want to share anything or add?
No, I think I've always hated discomfort and conflict.
you find with age that I'm actually getting
Learning to speak up. Very good. And that's true, like life will eventually get there. Okay, super. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. It's a pleasure. Okay, so we've just finished session 1. I really hope you enjoyed yourself, really putting yourself under the microscope and discovering who have you become. What's the persona that you've developed that you can identify in your Enneagram? So now we're going to stay tuned for session 2.